For generations, the Sterling family name was synonymous with unshakable foundations and honorable deals. But legacy is a fragile thing when placed in the wrong hands. When the older siblings inherited the empire, they systematically dismantled a century of integrity to build a machine fueled entirely by greed. They viewed employees as disposable numbers and safety regulations as mere suggestions. They traded high-grade materials for cheap alternatives, silencing anyone who dared to question their predatory tactics with threats and intimidation. Morgan, the youngest of the bloodline, watched in horror as the family's soul was hollowed out. Morgan refused to sign off on the new directives, arguing passionately that a legacy built on deceit and exploitation was destined for a catastrophic collapse. The older siblings did not just disagree. They saw this moral compass as a direct threat to their authority. In a swift, ruthless boardroom maneuver, Morgan was cast out, stripped of all assets, and permanently erased from the family history. The siblings celebrated the exile, utterly convinced that having a conscience was a fatal weakness in the modern world.
Deep inside the heart of that corrupt empire, a meticulously dedicated quality auditor named Sam believed that the truth was the only metric that mattered. The Sterling Company had recently secured the contract of a lifetime, the construction of a massive, state-of-the-art children's hospital. It was a project that would cement their monopoly in the city. But while conducting a routine review of the underground supply manifests, Sam noticed a terrifying discrepancy in the numbers. The steel designated for the central foundation pillars was of a drastically inferior grade, a fraction of the strength required by law. Driven by a sense of duty, Sam dug deeper into the secure servers, bypassing the basic administrative blocks. What Sam uncovered was a hidden, highly confidential structural report that had been intentionally buried. The math was undeniable. The cheap foundation would never hold the weight of the completed hospital. It was not just a scam, it was a ticking time bomb. Armed with the irrefutable evidence, Sam marched directly into the executive office, confronting the siblings and demanding the construction be halted immediately.
The siblings did not flinch. There was no shock, no remorse, only a cold, calculated fury that a mid-level auditor had uncovered their most lucrative secret. They cared nothing for the potential danger, solely focused on the profit margins. Right there in the office, they shredded the physical copy of the report. They fired Sam on the spot, fabricating vicious accusations of corporate theft to ruin Sam's reputation. But the cruelty did not stop at termination. To ensure absolute, terrified silence, the siblings leveraged their massive influence to place Sam on an industry-wide blacklist. Overnight, Sam became untouchable. No firm in the city would return a call. Doors slammed shut, savings evaporated, and the crushing weight of unpaid bills piled up. Yet in their arrogant haste to destroy a life, the siblings made one catastrophic miscalculation. They never stopped to consider that an auditor as thorough as Sam would have kept a secure, encrypted digital backup of that structural report.
Years turned into a grueling decade. The siblings lived in a bubble of extravagant luxury, oblivious to reality as the hospital construction slowly rose on its doomed foundation. Meanwhile, Morgan had started over from absolute zero. Operating out of a cramped, dusty office, Morgan built a small cooperative focused strictly on honest, durable, and fair construction work. It was an agonizingly slow and painful path. Profit margins were razor thin, and the days were brutally long. But Morgan's reputation for unbreakable integrity became legendary among local suppliers. Desperate, exhausted by years of the blacklist, and on the verge of losing everything, Sam sent one final hopeless resume to this small cooperative. Morgan saw right past the industry lies. Knowing the boundless cruelty of the Sterling family firsthand, Morgan completely ignored the blacklist warnings. During the interview, no words were needed about the past. The shared trauma of being discarded by the same toxic machine was enough. Morgan hired Sam immediately. It was the perfect silent alliance. Morgan offered respect and a sanctuary to rebuild, while Sam brought brilliant analytical expertise and an unshakable loyalty.
The inevitable reckoning finally approached. At the hospital site, dangerous, jagged cracks began spreading through the cheap concrete of the foundation. The engineers panicked. If they finished the remaining floors, the entire structure would collapse, and the Sterling siblings would face a lifetime in federal prison for mass endangerment. Their only chance of survival was a cowardly escape. They needed to sell the entire company immediately, offloading the doomed hospital and all its lethal liabilities onto an unsuspecting buyer before the public found out. Believing Morgan was still the naive, weak outcast from years ago, they targeted the cooperative. They flooded Morgan's office with mountains of aggressively forged financial documents, masking the critical structural failures behind glowing revenue projections. They smiled in their high-rise offices, believing they were handing Morgan a ticking time bomb that would destroy the cooperative forever.
They severely underestimated the minds reviewing those documents. Sitting in the quiet cooperative office under a single desk lamp, Sam immediately recognized the subtle encryption patterns and the familiar, deceptive accounting tricks of the Sterling Empire. Working through the night, Sam tore through the fake ledgers, bypassing the smoke screens and matching the structural load data perfectly with the hidden report saved a decade ago. The trap was laid bare. But Morgan and Sam didn't just decline the fraudulent offer. They meticulously weaponized it, turning the trap back on its creators.
The older siblings walked into the final negotiation room dressed in bespoke suits, expecting an easy, desperate surrender from their estranged sibling. Instead, they found Morgan sitting calmly at the head of the heavy oak table. And sitting right beside Morgan, holding a thick, devastatingly detailed folder, was Sam. The color instantly drained from the siblings' faces. The silence in the room was suffocating. Sam pushed the folder across the table. It contained every piece of forged evidence, every hidden financial file, the original structural report, and a drafted confession. Morgan leaned forward, the weight of 15 years of honest labor in every word, and delivered the absolute terms. There would be no financial buyout. The siblings were to surrender all controlling shares, all personal assets, and the entirety of the Sterling company to the cooperative immediately. If they refused to sign, the federal authorities waiting down the hall would arrest them on the spot for mass corporate fraud and public endangerment.
Stripped of their wealth, their fabricated power, and their pride, the siblings signed the papers with trembling hands. They walked out of the building and into the cold streets with absolutely nothing. Their legacy destroyed by their own greed. Morgan and Sam took immediate control of the site, but they didn't abandon the hospital. They halted the dangerous work the very next morning, brought in heavy demolition machinery, and bravely tore the rotten foundation completely out of the ground. Together, they started over. It would take years longer. It would be infinitely harder. But as Morgan and Sam poured the new, solid concrete, they knew this building and their true legacy would stand forever.